What's up, everybody? Let me get the tweet out. Hold on 1 second. Pew, pew. All right, got that out. Post a link in TrueTrader. What's up, everybody? Wonder what the turnout will be like now that it's football season again. What's up, Glade? Give this a few minutes, let some people come in, and we'll get this kicked off. What's up, Jordan? Tubuku and MS, how are you guys? I'm good. Everybody enjoying their weekend? You guys watching some football? Anybody watch the fights last night? Just watched the Steelers beat Cincinnati in overtime, and I'm not really a Steelers fan, but I'm not a Joe Burrow fan at all, so that was pretty fun to watch. Appreciate Steeler Nation doing that solid for me. And my team's playing right now, so as soon as I'm going to try to keep this one short and sweet, and I can watch the rest of my Chiefs game. If you guys, I just make sure my audio is okay. I just want to make sure it's not coming through too loud. If you guys can just let me know in the chat real quick. What's up, Cook? All right, thanks, Glade. Thanks, Cook. Awesome. Much appreciated, guys. Just about another minute, we'll get started. There's actually a lot of ideas on the actual prep this week, so hopefully you'll see a lot of similarities in them, and that way we don't have to spend too much time like pointing out why the idea is on the scan. That way we can try to get through. I think I want to say it was like 18 names or something. What's up, Sam? Coming off a short week last week, looking forward to a full 5 days of trading this week. And it's 9/11 today, guys, so obviously I think a lot of people are doing things today to remember that day. Still, I mean, everybody remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing when that happened. I know I for sure remember exactly where I was and what was going on in my life. It's one of those things that just is time-stamped forever in our memory. It just was the most unreal thing ever, and such a tragedy. Senseless violence, man. All right, so we are going to get this kicked off, guys. Yep, Glade mentioning CPI number this week. We'll get into the prep real quick before we get started. If you guys have not tried Cobra out, oh, man, you're missing out, guys. Best broker, hands down. As far as short sellers go, best locates, cheapest locates. As far as just overall broker, period, hands down, number one in customer support, which is a huge thing when you're dealing with a broker, guys. I've dealt with a lot of other brokers that I could not say the same thing about. If you want to give these guys a try, there is a link in the description. It will get you 25% off your commissions. It'll also get you 1 month free of whatever platform you want to try, whether Sterling or DOS. I like to use DOS. I know a lot of other people like Sterling, but you got to have a good broker, guys. Scripts to Trade. Talk about these guys every week. Hands down, one of my favorite groups of people to work with. These guys create indicators and tools for Thinkorswim and for TradingView, and they have like a whole suite of ready to go indicators, everything from volume analysis tools to GapStat tools to anything you can think of, right? And if they don't have what you can think of or what you are thinking of or what you want, they can work with you to create it. And literally, if you can dream it, they can make it. They're amazing, guys. TraderView, these guys are who I use to track my personal performance metrics, and if you're not already doing that, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. So check these guys out. There's a link in the description for them as well. Traders for a Cause is coming up. It's the last week of September, first few days of October. Hopefully you guys will be out in Vegas. I know Cook's in the chat right now. He won a ticket. I'm looking forward to meeting him out there. It's a great cause. It's a great event every single year. If you can't be there, head over to Traders for a Cause, or actually it's Project Impact.org, I believe, to make a donation. It's for cancer research, guys. And then we have a few earnings this week. Not a lot. I mean, we're getting to the tail end of it, right? I see Oracle's on there, Adobe's on there, but hopefully we'll have some good plays and some good liquidity and some good range. We'll see. Okay, right? We are getting to the tail end of the earnings season, so it wouldn't surprise me if things start to kind of chill for a little bit. All right, so the topic for this week is, every single week when I'm making my plans, I have to, and you guys by now should already know this, right? Is that I start with the broader market analysis and then move on to a sector analysis because of that's not just by accident. There's a reason why I start with the broader market and move on to sectors and then the actual ideas. And it's because that's the way you should do it, right? You need to see where we are in the market, because where we're at currently should dictate how you're running your scans, right? So I have a whole host of different scans I run to look for different types of things. And depending on where we're at in the market, certain scans might be where I go for that type of market, right? And other scans are completely useless in that market. And I want to kind of make sure we understand that, right? Like, for instance, when we're building a base, like a few weeks or a few months ago, right? We're kind of building this base at the lows of where the S&P is kind of pushed off from, right? While we were building that base, I was looking for other charts that were also building bases, right? And so I have a scan for that. But once we pushed up from that base, I no longer want to look for stocks that are still building a base, because if they didn't push when the market pushed from that base, that to me was kind of showing relative weakness. Now, granted, sometimes stocks could just be laggers and they're just, late bloomers, whatever. But if the market's ripping, I want to know what else is moving. I want to know what has a good correlation and what might even, not even just correlate, but has relative strength, right? And so for that reason, like at certain times, I'll use that scan to find stocks that are building bases that they might push from. But there's other times when I don't use that scan at all, right? Well, what kind of market have we been in recently, right? And obviously we'll get into that when we do the broader market. But just for a quick, shortened version of it, we've made this big push up. And we talked about that last week being, we'd had this big move down. And the more we went down without having that bounce, the more I was leaning towards the long ideas. And that was why, right? Because things don't just go straight down. Well, guess what? They don't just go straight up either. And so as we've had this big rally into a lot of areas of resistance, there's a scan that I run. We actually talked about it in one of the Sunday preps a few weeks ago, and that was looking for context of what we call when shorts scream, right? And what it is basically those stocks that meet a certain criteria, being up a certain percent, trade a certain amount of volume, have a certain amount of range, but also close at like the highs of the range. It doesn't have to close at the high a day, but needs to close in the upper 80% of the range. Not only that, but also should be closing at the top 90% of the week's range or the last 5 trading days. And that like sets the stage for something that was grinding up all day long and never let shorts out, right? And the concept there is that if that the next day or the following days still doesn't let shorts out, it's possibly setting up for that squeeze out where all the shorts that just been adding and finally just throw in the towel. That's when you get that blow off top and things sit back, right? So we want to know when things are setting up for that. Well, guess what? In a market like the one we've had over the last week, that scan is producing a lot of names, right? So it's giving me a lot of things to look at. And let me just go straight into, so here is, actually let's get into first, the scan I run is on Spike Heat, right? And so I didn't plug Spike Heat in the intro like I always do, right? These guys here, because I'm actually gonna show you a little bit of how I use that, right? So I use their tools to pull these scans, right? This is what we call the candidate list. This is names that going into Monday have met certain criteria that, like, namely a lot of the things I just talked about, right? So these names all meet that criteria. That's a base criteria, right? This is a scan pulled directly from Spike Heat. I'm hiding a bunch of columns where there's a bunch of other data that I use that, if you guys want to see all that kind of data, get an account with Spike Heat and you can pull any kind of data point you can imagine. It's amazing, right? But this right here is just a list of what I call candidates, okay? So once we have a list of candidates, I throw them into a watch list right here, right? I just call it import into TradingView, and here's all these names, right? And if I go through this list, you'll see all the charts kind of have that look, right? Where they closed at highs, it had a big day, and shorts are probably kind of hurting. Now, granted, there's like names like this, right? BHP, probably not too interested in it. I don't like that daily chart. Now, I'm not, if you like that chart, then so be it, right? But me personally, that's not the kind of chart I'm looking for. But I know what I'm looking for, right? I know what I personally like and the setups I like. So I go through this list, and this is like, because of where we're at in the market, these names are going to be huge focal points for my week ahead, right? Now, there's not only the candidate list, there's what we call, so to become a candidate, they need to, the stocks need to fit certain criteria. But then the next following day, right? So come Monday, if the stocks then gap up and push further, never giving back the gap, they get put onto a even more refined list, which I just call it the official member list, right? And so I run a scan for that as well using Spike Heat, and you can see it here. These are the names that were on the candidate list on Thursday that then met all the refinement filters to become official members, right? And so these names here they did something very specific on Friday that made them go from being a candidate to the official member list. Sorry if that got confusing, right? But let's look at, like, one of them was TOST, okay? So here's Thursday, it had this big move up, closed at the highs. And then look at Friday, gap up and push even further. So it still has not given any of the move back. So how do you think, like, and if we were to peek inside the intraday chart, how do you think shorts are feeling here, right? If you shorted on Thursday and thought, oh, it's rolling over for sure, it's going to give this move back. Nope, reclaim, grind. What, next day, Friday, gap up, push, grind, just literally grinding. This isn't the kind of move where anybody's bailing out of yet. We're not getting that blow off, right? This is what we were talking about in chat the other day of the analogy of the frogs being slow cooked, right? The shorts are getting slow cooked here. And what we're hoping for is what this will eventually amount to is a big blow off. And we need to be stalking it, knowing that shorts are getting slow cooked here and that this could present a really, really great opportunity, right? And you're starting to see a lot more of these because of where we're at in the actual market right now, okay? So really the point I wanted to drive home was just being able to use where we're at in the broader market to kind of think creatively about what should you be looking for in individual names for your week ahead, right? Or whether you do this on Sunday or let's say it's midweek, right? Maybe middle of the week, maybe the SPYs come back in, maybe the Qs have come back in, right? And I'm running completely different scans at that point. But you need to think creatively about what the market's trying to tell you, right? Where are we? Are we extended above the 20-day by a lot, right? Are we getting really extended? Have we just pulled back to support? Are we way below? Have we overshot and sold off too far? You need to understand those concepts so that your eyes are focused in the right spots for when the trading day comes, right? Like stock selection and the trade where we're trying to focus and deploy capital to risk is extremely important. It's crucial. If you are focused on the wrong names, you're literally going to feel like you're just beating your head against the wall, okay? So that was what I wanted to kind of drive home this week. We'll get into the actual scan now. Let me just get this disclaimer out of the way. Guys, neither I, True Trader, or any of its representatives are registered as security broker dealers. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Anything you hear me talk about today is simply my own opinion. It's for entertainment purposes only. It is not a solicitation to buy or sell any stocks. All right, so let me, hold on one second. I'm gonna move the chat over here and let me go to my main. Now, this is something, if you guys don't understand how futures contracts work, you might get confused by this, but I always use ES to chart, right? When we talk about the broader market, I'm always using the ES, the futures contracts for the S&P. And TradingView rolled over the futures contract a day early. They did it on, for whatever reason, I believe it was Friday morning, we woke up and it was showing these prices, but they were incorrect. Okay, so the futures contracts are supposed to roll over tomorrow on the 12th. So this candle here is incorrect. In fact, you needed to be using this ESU 2022, which is the September futures contracts, to get the correct ES prices. Now, I don't know if TradingView is going to get this corrected to, like, actually, I'll be watching it when the Globex overnight session opens here in in 45 minutes or something. It usually opens like right when I get done the prep. So I'm going to be watching to see if they get it corrected, but I can't use the ES to discuss, or I can't use this ES on TradingView to discuss the levels for this week or where we're at, right? So I'm currently using this, and the problem with using ESU 2022 is that you only get the data for this contract, right? If we look way back, you had nothing, right? So bear with me, guys. And I guess I could use SPY as well to discuss levels. I just prefer not to because it's always gappy, right? Because it doesn't have the overnight sessions. So we'll just, and same goes with the NQ, guys. So bear with me. We're using we'll just use this chart. It has none of my support and resistance or trend lines drawn, but it's very simple for me to look at a chart like this and still be able to go, okay, I can see exactly the levels I'll be playing against this week. Okay, so the levels for me personally, actually, let's talk about what we've had happen, right? So we had the big sell-off, we finally had the rally, and now we're coming back into the underside of the 20-day, right? Last week we broke the previous week's highs, so it's very possible. And in fact, I will use the SPY for this, just to show you a weekly chart, guys. It's very possible that we may be putting in the lower high here. so that we can kind of get this move, right? This is the push up into the weekly 20, the pullback, lower high, and then if we break these lows here, then we should test down here at these lows, right? Or the other scenario that may be shaping up here is on the monthly chart. We may be, let me get rid of these lines real quick. All right. We may be putting in the higher low on the monthly chart, and this is the setup that we actually talked about last week, I believe, was, you know, this is usually what ends bear markets, right? When the monthly chart regains its uptrend. And, you know, we're making lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. But right here, if this is going to be the lows, this is the first opportunity here to put in a higher low and then push. So those are the two scenarios I see playing out. But let me get back to my ES chart. As far as how I'll play this week, I'm still going to play all pushes back up into these levels of resistance are going to give me good opportunities for fades, right? So the underside of the 20-day is currently, we'll just call it 4,100, and 4,200 is the next level. So those are the two main levels of resistance above that I'll be playing against, especially if we have a big fast move into those levels, right? You can see the price action has just been up, 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 hasn't had any real breather. If this speeds up exactly like we were talking about with some of those individual names that are on that when short screen list, then I'm really leaning into the short ideas, especially up into the underside of the 20-day. If it gets through, that's fine. Like I said, 4,200 is the next level for me on that. As far as support, I'm going to probably play against the 50-day. We'll call it, the 50-day is currently 40.32. And then you have 40.20 is the next level of support. So just call it a range, right? Some between 40.30 and 40.20. Obviously 4,000 psychological level, 4K. You also have your quarterly pivot there. I can't remember. I swear ES had some other pivots. Yeah, the annual pivot's right there as well, right? Yeah, so 40.30 to 40.20, then 4,000. Let me peer into some of these intraday time frames here. Let's look at a 5-minute. Zoom out a little. I'd be playing against this 39.40 area. 39.40 is the next level for me below 4K. So the same idea with NQ, and remember, guys, the contracts are the same. I'm waiting to see if when the futures open tonight, if they've kind of adjusted this and have it all fixed. But if not, NQ's the same way as far as finding the right chart to look at. It's the NQU 2022, and that's the correct prices from Friday, right? This is a correct Friday candle for those NQ contracts. So again, the underside of the 20-day is going to be call it 12,800. Above that is going to be this 13,200 area. And then above that, I don't know if we're going to get above that or not, but if we were to, I'd be looking at, let me look into, whoops, I want to check something here. So here was your last failed breakout. Yep, so right here, this 13.5 area. 13.5 would be the last level of resistance I'm going to really have on watch for the early part of this week. As far as support goes, probably right into this 12.5 area. You know, the annual pivot down here is lining up really nicely with a lot of recent lows. So 12.120, and then obviously the recent lows of 11.9. Again, I'm not setting the alerts. I don't trade off this chart. I will go back and set my alerts later tonight after the futures open and I figure out what they're doing with these charts. But you know, I'll probably rewatch my own Sunday prep just to remember the exact levels I called out so I can throw them on my charts. Bitcoin, remember we talked about Bitcoin, this level, this 19K level is the level that we would be getting long against. Pretty good level to play against, guys. It held very convincingly. Keep in mind, we're still in this sideways channel, and what we've been talking about, right, is anything above the lows and below the 25K level is really kind of just noise, right? But you can still position or play trades on equities using those levels, right? So that the level to the upside still going to be that 23.6 area is what I'm looking at. And then I still think that 19K level is what you really want to see holding. Obviously, the oh shit level is below 17,567.45. And again, I say this every week. I don't trade Bitcoin. I just watch it so that I can trade the individual equities that follow it, right? And there's coin is a big one this week, so definitely worth knowing where Bitcoin's at. Let's get rid of that drawing. All right, so that is the broader market analysis. Forgive me, guys, for TradingView's charting issues with their futures contracts, but hopefully that'll be resolved tonight, and then won't have that issue again moving forward. Let's get into the sector analysis real quick. Go over to barchart.com. I guess I'm not logged in right now. No, I am. All right. So obviously lots of green across the board last week. You can see staples was the relative weak one, right? And well, same with communications, and we've been talking about them nonstop about how weak that sector's been. Materials and consumer discretionary were the ones that had the big strength. Consumer discretionary, if you recall, is one that I do like when the short setups are there in that sector, especially when we are, still the economy is not quite recovered yet, at least not in my opinion. Prices are still pretty inflated out there. A lot of uncertainty, right? So let's take a look under the hood and go look at the ETFs for each of those. And I'm freestyling these because I don't like to I don't want to spend too much time on the weekend writing notes on a notepad. Guys, this retail is any kind of push up into this 67, 67.50. If this move continues to speed up into those levels, there's going to be some really good shorts in this sector. I think you can still play bounces as well on pullbacks into support into the 63.50 area. Let me take a look at the weekly real quick. Yeah, so yeah, holding up. And XLF, same thing. Speed ups into 36 area would be where I would be looking to fade. But again, this is that sector that I like the way the sector's been trading. I would rather be on this sector. I would be rather getting long on pullbacks to support. We talked about this pullback and how this is the one we wanted to see put in this higher low on the weekly chart, right? So if this indeed does put in this higher low here, I want to be getting long on dips with defined risk on names in this sector. Real estate. Yeah, a lot. And so here's the other thing, guys, is a lot of these names are kind of what I call in no man's land because they've made these pushes, but they're not quite where they need to be yet for the fades, but they're also too extended to be getting long, right? So you're going to hear me say this a lot because they're all looking the same, but that is, any kind of push further, if they continue to speed up and don't have pullbacks, pushes further into these levels of resistance are going to offer fades, but they're not there yet, right? They need to push further. And if you're looking to get long on any of them, you can't get long here. You need to be waiting for them to pull back to support so that you're not chasing, right? Not just getting buried when they do have the pullback. Again, not financial advice, just the way I personally play things, right? I'm not getting long after having a big move up unless things pull back first and consolidate and show some support. This is healthcare. This is the one we keep talking about, this super important level, right? We've been talking about this level forever and it keeps holding, right? But it had a giant speed up right into this other level we've also been discussing. So it's there, right? I think it might get a little further, but this is the area where this extended move is probably going to find a struggle. It doesn't mean that it won't eventually get through, reclaim, and get pushing, but this is a big move straight up into that level, just like this one was, right? This one was obviously a much larger move into that level, but you can see when we have these big moves like that in the levels, oftentimes you get these nice retraces that doesn't mean I'm a bear or I'm short, like I'm a perma short or whatever. It just means that I wouldn't get long up here. I would wait for dips. But if you are looking to short things, this is the kind of move that's gotten extended in the levels, right? Materials, I believe, was the one, had a really big week last week, and it's right up into resistance, right? So any further push in that sector, I think you're looking at some fades. Industrials, probably right into the underside. I love usually shorting into the underside of the 20-day, but when you have this resistance level up here that's just really clear cut, what is it, 97.50-ish, lining up so perfectly with the 200-day in that sector, that would be where I'd be looking for the fade. I'd be patient. If it doesn't get there, you don't get the trade. It doesn't really matter, right? There's always another great setup right around the corner. All right, keep that in mind, guys. Utilities still up at all-time highs up here. I believe all-time highs, right? Yeah. So can it push further? I don't know. We'll see. It had a bit of an indecisive Friday. If I was playing a fade, I would probably play, I would be looking to play against Friday's high a day, like over under, but knowing that it's so close to the all-time highs up here, I'd probably give it enough wiggle room to be playing actually against those highs. Hopefully that makes sense. Another thing about utilities too, right? We talk about this every week, is it's not typically what you want to see trading at all-time highs when we're in a bear market, right? This is something that continues to perform well in late stage cycles, and it still is, right? So we just need to remain objective and acknowledge that, instead of, everybody wants the bear market to end. When's it going to end? When are we going to bottom? We'll bottom when we bottom, but you can't hope and pray or see things that aren't there. We got to take the clues when we see them, right? And I constantly follow utilities and some of the defensive stocks and like other things that perform really well in late stage cycles, just so I can keep an objective black and white view on things, regardless if you want to short or long any equity. We just need to always keep that northern light, or that North Star, right? That keeps us focused in the right areas. Consumer staples. This one, man, I really think that we did just put in that lower high here. I'm looking for fades anywhere into the 76 area, right? A retest of the underside of this trend line to make another lower high here that I think eventually can come back under 72 and roll back over down to the 68 level. Definitely watching this sector this week for a fade. But another one that's still in no man's land, right? I don't think it's there yet. I'm being patient. Hopefully we get into the 76s, maybe even 75.50. All right, discretionary. This is the one where we were talking about. I'm looking for fades in here. I'm probably looking for anything up into the 170 area. Obviously, you have the descending 200-day up in there. Again, another one that's can push. If it pushes a little bit further and just gets that speed up, it's going to set up a lot of names for some great fades. Communications, here's your relative weakness sector, as always. Anything in the underside of the 20-day, 50-day up there is probably a fade for me. Remember, this is a great sector because there's so many names in there that have range and liquidity. So lots of opportunities in this sector, guys. Bios, still trading all right. They held this level, right? We keep talking about, as long as it's holding it, don't be like, oh, it's going to break and get all short of in anticipation of a break. Wait for it to break, right? As long as it's behaving well, there's still a good chance we come up here and can get over this 95.30 area and really clear out. So I'm just taking it a day at a time in this sector. Another sector where, we talked about this one, right? Like last week, and we've been talking about it since this bear market started, but really beaten down and finally started behaving well, right? So everything you want to see for a reversal in the bottom happen, right? Higher time frames, putting in levels at areas that make sense, right? Logical areas to be watching for a bottom. Then you get the higher low and the trend reversal. We reclaim the weekly 20. I believe there was a setup on the monthly as well, right? No, actually I'm wrong about that. So, for this sector to actually continue and behave well, I think we do need to eventually have a higher low on the monthly time frame. But who knows when that happens. But when it does, don't get freaked out and immediately think, oh, it's rolling back over and that's the end of this little reversal that it's put in. It may just need to break previous month's lows real quick, probe lower, put in a higher low, and then that can actually begin a much bigger reversal than what we're already seeing, right? So far, so good. Tech. Underside of the 20-day is where I'm looking, probably maybe even 143. Any kind of speed up into those levels, I'm looking to fade. And that's probably my favorite sector to trade, right? All the tech stocks. XLE, energy and oil, still okay, still holding. One thing that struck me that just seems really straightforward and easy and obvious that most people, when you hear me say it, you'll go, duh. But when you really go ask yourself this and ask yourself honestly if you've been doing this, that is, there will be a time and a place where it becomes obvious that this bigger, higher time frame uptrend that we've been in is changing, right? So far, it's just textbook. This is such a textbook uptrend. Every time frame, higher lows, higher highs, pullbacks to support, holding levels that are just the most perfect technical levels. They're just holding, right? Both sectors, oil and energy, and everything is orderly and concise. When it changes, like let's just look back here, right? This uptrend from let's just call it June 2012 to when it topped in 2014, right? This pullback here in the late stages of 2014, the uptrend was still intact, even though we can look back in hindsight like, yeah, that was the beginning of this big downtrend. Until certain levels were breached and then retests were unable to reclaim, it was intact, right? So there was no reason to really fight it short. When things change, it'll be obvious. You don't, and like that's the thing is like, I know it sounds really duh that when it changes it'll be obvious, but so many people get caught fighting something that there's not a reason to fight it yet, right? So look at the difference between something like oil and energy and communications, right? Like, where do you think the easy short is? The easy short is the stocks or the sectors that are just stupidly weak. The easy long in a bear market is where the only uptrends are, right? Like, and if it wasn't in oil and energy, it'd be somewhere else. And that's, if you're looking for somewhere to deploy money to get long stocks, hopefully it's the sectors that are telling you to do so. Don't hope and wish and see things that aren't there. When this uptrend ends, it will be obvious, and then there will be plenty of shorts in the energy and oil sector. But until then, like, only way you short anything in this sector is on extreme extensions when things get overblown, and you still got to manage your risk like a hawk. Okay, that's all I really wanted to say about the energy and oil sector. Let's get into the actual names from the prep. Now you'll recall, right? I had this list, right? Import to TradingView, which is all these names that met certain criteria, right? From that scan I run. So here's the kicker. Every single name on my Sunday prep this week is from this list. All right, it's as simple as that. Now, granted, the setup I explained to you guys is typically what I use to look for shorts. But when you go through these charts, some of them look like they've got a lot further they could go. And if they offer pullbacks, there's some good longs in there. So don't think that there's no long setups in my prep this week. We're about to start on them. The first setups we're looking for is strong stocks looking for continuation. And the first name on my list is RCL. Now, granted, this is getting extended, right? But look at the daily chart. This thing looks textbook. I'm looking for a flush to get long. Now, I'm going to give you a heads up. This is also a name in my short list later. In just a little bit, right? I have a short idea on this as well, but if this doesn't push to where I want to get short and instead gaps down, rolls over, early panic flush Monday morning, I'm looking to buy this, right? So the first level I'm looking at is probably this 45 area, 44.80, 45, and if that doesn't work, I'm looking at 42, the 20-day. Okay, so that's the long idea on RCL. We'll come back to it for the short idea in a minute. All right, next idea is RIVN. I like this one. I just like the way that it's been holding these pullbacks, right? And there's just this really black and white level here. 35, I'm looking to get long on a flush, any kind of panic flush. Now, granted, I don't know if you guys trade RIVN or were paying attention last week, but Thursday morning pre-market, there was like a rumor chatter, right? And thing just gave a huge short opportunity. A lot of guys in the True Trader room caught this. Great opportunity. But since that happened, what has it done? It's just held higher lows. So part of me thinks maybe there's people that, you know, are thinking that it's a no-brainer short up into those levels, and may just be ignoring the price action. I'm looking for a long on a flush to 35 on this name, guys, for a bounce play. So that's RIVN. The next idea in this section is Pinterest, pins. Now, and remember, these are on this list from the screener that shows me where shorts might be in trouble, right? So if you look at the intraday price action, right, it's just has not let shorts out. Big old push up, pull back, probably looks heavy. People think it's overextended, short, and then it reclaims and trends, and then the next day gaps up, right? Flushes, holds previous day's high, doesn't let shorts out, grinds higher, right? So I think there's a lot of shorts bent on the name. So what I'm looking for is a flush down into 24 to scoop this thing for a bounce play, because I think if it offers that flush, I think you're going to get a lot of people just taking the covers. I think there's people stuck in this, and if you look at the daily chart, that 24 level just looks amazing, right? So any kind of flush down to 24, I'm probably looking to scoop Pinterest. That's it for strong stocks looking for continuation. One stock made the actually in this, I guess I'm wrong, not all the stocks in my scan this week are from that screener. There's one name which is from last week for oversold reversions. You know, I think there's this is ZIM for what it's worth. I know you guys can't see the watermark is bright. I dimmed that because it was showing up too bright on my charts and blurring in with my candles, so I dimmed it. But this is ZIM, it's a shipper, and we were watching it last week because we just, you know, I'm looking for that oversold bounce. Thursday, that candle to me looks like, all right, it's telling me it's ready. I just want to flush in the levels that I think I can scoop it using Thursday's low a day as my kind of risk level. So I'm looking at 31 and 30 and a half. Let's see if I can, yeah, any kind of flush down into this 31 level. If you just draw a line across from Thursday, there's 31 and then 30 and a half, right? These lows right in here that we're holding. Just watching to see if we come down into those levels. If they hold, give a nice little bounce play. That's ZIM, and that's all the long ideas. Everything else is a short idea, guys. We're gonna jump into weak stocks looking for continuation. The first name on my list is ROKU. Looking for, now, here's the thing. We don't know if we're gonna gap up, gap down, open flat, whatever, right? So I'm watching 74s for a fade, but if we gap down big for some reason or whatever, I would possibly look to fade a pop into Friday's high day into the underside of the 20 using Friday's high day over under, right? So two different ways, right? Depending on how we open. And that's actually going to be true for quite a few names in this list, right? So 74 is what I want. If we gap down, I'd probably be looking for a pop into 72 using Friday's high day as my risk, okay? TDOC, same thing. I'm looking for 34.50 to 35, I believe. What did I write down? 35. And again, if we gap down for whatever reason, I would look for a big spike into the underside of the 20-day using Friday's high day over under. Okay. Next name, coin. This one is high on my list. Now, look, when we had this big old move up, and it was kind of, you know, we basically put in a really, really big reversal pattern here on some higher time frames. I think it was even on the monthly too. No, we never got the higher low on the monthly. I'm wrong. But regardless, when we got this big move up and it consolidated above prior resistance, became support, I think a lot of people were kind of building in thinking this was going to get another leg and push. I think any kind of push back up into these levels, the first attempt to reclaim through there is a big short. So I'm looking at 80. Not 80. What did I write down? 80. Where's my list? 83. Any kind of spike into 83, which if we, you know, this line, I've had this line drawn forever. I'm just going to extend it, but that's the level, right? That's the level that when we finally broke under, gap down, everybody got bagged from the gap down. It's our first retest. So I'm really looking for a pop into 83. Now this thing has a lot of range, right? So I'm not trying to step in front of it, but if we shove an 83, I'm stalking it. I'm looking for lower highs, something to risk against, because I think this thing's going to give a nice rollover. Doesn't mean we won't reclaim eventually. Like I always say, guys, I'm looking for day trades here, right? I'm looking for a pop into that level to fade, and this isn't a swing idea or anything like that. I'm just trying to make 2, 3, 4 points on a name like this. All right. Next name on this list is LYFT. Now, this one, I wanted 1850, 1865. Basically, I'll show you where this level is. Right here. Okay, 1865-ish. But this is another one I'm not going to step in front of. I'm just going to wait for. This is why this is on when short scream list, right? Like grind, never let shorts out, grind. I want that parabolic push. Very reminiscent of like Roblox did it, I want to say a month and a half, 2 months ago or something, where it finally just had that speed up. You could see everyone squeeze out, all the people that have been adding, squeeze out, and when they were done, it gave the most beautiful unwind. And I really think LYFT is going to do that as well. You just got to be patient for the squeeze out. When you see that squeeze out, be ready, because I don't care if it happens at 1865, 19, 1950. I don't care if it goes to 20. When I see the squeeze out, that's when I'm going to pounce. Okay? So that's LYFT. TTWO is the next name on this list. I don't know if we're going to get there. I did throw it on the list just in case, but this 136 area has my interest big time. So I have an alert set up there. I don't know if we get up there, but if we do, I'd definitely be interested in fading TTWO. Square. Again, I remember I said this at the beginning. Hopefully these names all start to look very similar to each other, so we don't have to keep going over why it's a fade or why it's an idea on my list. This was on the list last week. 75. We're there, right? So if we don't gap down, if we open right around here, then I'm going to be more patient. I'm going to be patient for a push into 80, right? A push into 80, very similar look to coin, right? Coin had that reclaim, consolidate, then broke under it, gap down. This is the first retest from the underside. So 80 is what I want. But if we gap down for some reason, I would play this against 75 using Friday's high day as the over-under, just like we were talking about with ROKU and TDOC. And actually, I think it was just those two so far. We talked about that. But that's the square idea. Crowd strike. I like this chart for a fade. Anything into 200, guys. A 200 spike, parabolic push, psychological round number, upper trend line coming down, this descending trend line, monthly pivot, right? So many reasons to want to fade this into 200. Hope we get it. We'll see. RBLX. Now, look at this is what I see a lot of in bear markets, and I've been making notes about this, and I'm stalking these setups, guys. But we keep getting where you get these pushes that break above a level, right? Like Roblox right here, breaks over this high and just sits right back down, and then immediately the next push above again puts in that lower high, and then this thing just falls apart, right? And now we're pushing right back up into those levels. Any kind of spike into 48.50 to 49, I'm looking to fade this. If it wants to get further, that's fine. I think that this is just too far, too fast. I'm praying for a gap up and a big old spike on this name. Even if it wants to go and test 50, I'm stalking this Roblox chart for a fade. Granted, I want people to pay attention. This thing is on the list for a long time, right? And look where it pulled back to and held, right? That bounce off that 36 level was, hopefully people had that marked and were watching that, because that was a great long trade as well. Now that we're getting extended to the upside, I think there's going to be a big fade in here. So that's it for the weak stocks looking for continuation. The next section is the overbought reversion setups. And they're not going to look like the typical ones, right? They're not going to look like those ones that are just parabolic on the daily chart. These are all from that when short screen list, and you're going to hopefully see these charts and think they all kind of look really similar, right? So getting extended, I'm looking for this. This is SMAR, by the way. I'm sorry. I got to remember you guys can't see this watermark as well. So this is Smart Sheet. SMAR, I'm hoping the liquidity stays at least over 2 million per day on the volume. I'm looking for a big shove into 39 to fade. Another one where I'm not going to step in front of it, right? Like if this wants to push through 39, maybe test 40, but then come back, sit back and come back under 39, make some lower highs, then I would put the trade on. The higher the better on all of these, okay? TOST, remember this is the one that was like, not only was it from the candidate list, this one actually became an official member by having the second day gap up and follow through. So any kind of push higher, and I'm really getting interested in TOST. The first level I wrote down is 2278. It's basically, you know, we had this big, again, over here we have this big push up, lower high, then broke down, right? That actually that was not this one. I'm talking about right here where we were trying to base, push, break above these highs, and then sit back down. It's the first retest in the underside of that level. And I actually think that a break above these levels here is what gives it that pop, right? I think there's a lot of shorts building into positions and stuff that are going to squeeze out. So 2278 is the first level. If that doesn't work, I'm revisiting this around 24. I want to keep this on my watch because, again, remember, these end up on my list because they made that screen. They fit certain criteria where shorts are getting bent, right? This thing probably had people interested in fading it, looked weak, looked like it's going to roll over, reclaim, and then grind, then gap up and grind. Shorts are cooking in this thing. So like, just be patient, wait for the squeeze out, wait for that parabolic blow off, and then get ready to come in. X. Now X, I kind of like where it's currently at. If we gap down, I'm looking to fade it into Friday's highs. The next level I'm looking at is probably this 2650, but what I wrote down is that if it doesn't want to roll over from here, like if this level is not the spot and it does want to go 2650, I think I'll probably switch my focus to AA, because I think if, you know, they're the same sector, right? Same industry. These are steel manufacturers. And so if X wants to push to 2650, that's probably going to relate to AA having like a 55 push. And I really think a push into 55 on AA is going to offer a nice short. Let me see if I can find, yeah, right here. So right here is where that big blow off happened, and then we came down, lower high here, and then this is the level it kind of broke down from, right? Just draw this straight across. That's where 55 came from, in case you were wondering, guys. Any kind of big pop into 55, I'm looking to fade AA. And like I said, I like X for a fade. I think this is the level. You know, same reason why I think AA is a fade at 55 is why I think this X is a fade here at 25. We're retesting the underside of where this thing broke down from and had this substantial sell-off, right? But we want to get through here and push up into these 26s, then I'm probably shifting focus to AA and trying to look for that pop into 55 to fade. Next name on the list is, as promised, RCL. I told you I would come back to this as a fade idea as well. I'm looking for 49 to 50 as the first area to fade on RCL. If it wants to get through there and keep pushing, I'm looking for 54 to 55, right? Like I have no problem taking a paper cut loss, like a pre-planned 1 hour loss if I'm wrong about this 49 to 50 area. Stop out and then completely reassess on a 54 to 55 pop, okay? So that's the RCL short idea. Remember, there was a long idea in there as well. And the last name on my list this week is RVNC, and I am looking to fade a pop in the 29-ish, risking using Friday's high day over under, right? This big move up was on, I believe they have like a competitive product to Botox, but I just think this move here, and I think the FDA possibly approved it last week. I don't remember what I was reading about it earlier, but I don't care. And if it gets through Friday's high day I'll stop out. I don't care, and I'll revisit it. The higher, the better. I keep telling you guys this. I mean it. When I say if something goes higher, I get even more excited because it hasn't had a substantial pullback yet. But I will fade a pop into Friday's high day with real tight risk, and look for this thing to roll over and give some of this move back. So those are the ideas. Remember, the whole point of the prep this week was to kind of point out how using the broader market to dictate which screeners you should be using at what time, right? I'm gonna look real quick, see if we have any questions. Let's see here. Got some questions. All right, so yeah, so Elation was pointing out that there is the CPI number on Wednesday, and PPI is Thursday, so be careful. 100% correct. And I always appreciate when people point those kinds of things out, guys. Even if 90% of the people in the chat or watching this already know that, the 10% that didn't, you may have just saved them, right? So guys, thank you for pointing those kinds of things out. Very important. And that's part of, you know what, I may actually start including that in the Sunday prep, is showing you guys how to go look up the important economic numbers for the week ahead. Let me just show you real quick. Whoops. So this is marketwatch.com, and these are all the upcoming numbers for the week. You guys should know about this. If you don't know about this, familiarize yourself with it. There's nothing worse than not knowing numbers are coming out and getting blindsided by them, right? And if you're in a community like True Trader, you'll always have at least one or two people reminding you, like, okay, certain numbers are about to be released, watch your positions. Definitely something that can save you guys a lot of headaches. Grandizer says, how about Roblox, man? Was super strong, like you said. Bounces was strong from 37. Yeah, we just talked about Roblox, so hopefully that answered any questions you had about it. Gustavo, are we short on QQQ? I have 20K on QQQ puts, September 16, 300, the 300 puts, expecting 302.75 Monday due to the bounce level on July 28th. Well, one is I'm not going to ever give you guys financial advice, right? That's not what we're here to do. I'm just trying to give you guys some ideas to trade off and stuff. Like I said, in the broader market analysis, right? Pops, like, especially like, I can use the QQQ to tell you, but any kind of pop, this is going to line up exactly with where we were talking about it on the NQ, right? A pop into the underside is 312 to 313. That's where I'm leaning into the short ideas, especially in the tech sector, right? So I don't know, like, I honestly, as long as here's what I'll tell you about your QQQ short with your options. What's your plan, and are you sticking to it? And that's really all that matters. And I'll always say this to you guys, even if I don't like an idea, don't ever let it influence your decision. Your decision needs to be thought out before you put the trade on, right? And then don't ever let somebody's opinion sway you. Stick to your plan, guys. That's the only thing I'll tell you. Okay. Cage, where do you see Oxy? I see it at 65, 61, bro. Like I said, what did we talk about with the oil and the energy names, right? There will be an obvious backside to those sectors. When it's obvious, that's when you can step in and look to fade. But right now, the only way to short it is when things get extended, right? So you can see when it got extended up into levels, historically significant levels, it gave really good fades. But all the pullbacks are holding. It's still making higher lows, right? So, like, why step in front of it? If you want to get long, buy the dips, right? Buy dips into support because it's behaving really well. Look at how it's behaving on the weekly 20 here. Pull back to the weekly 20. Look at this. Where's my drawing tools? Pull back to the weekly 20. Whoops. Higher low. Break it at high. Where's it go? To the target. The target would have been right up here. Gets to the target, rolls over, back into the weekly 20. Need to give it, you need to have a plan, right? So, like, if you wanted to buy this, if the plan is that it's going to hold the weekly 20, maybe you're buying with risk under last week's lows. But again, you have to create the plan and then stick to it. And the problem is that you don't know what someone else's plan is, right? There's 100 different plans you can come up with, but you've got to make your own and stick to it, right? What if somebody else has this plan? What if they're waiting for this to pull back down to here? What if they're waiting for 59s to buy it? But you buy here at 64, right? And you're all of a sudden you're talking with people on Twitter because you're upside down. It comes into 62 and you're bag holding it. You were supposed to stop out under last week's lows, but you didn't do it because you didn't want to eat the loss. You didn't want to stick to your plan. And you, lo and behold, you find somebody on Twitter and they're like, dude, I'm drooling over the possibility of scooping this off 59, right? Because their idea is to play it off this trend line. And then what does it do? It influences you to hold and maybe add at 59. Well, what do you do when that guy's wrong too? And it goes to 56 and you find people that are like, oh man, I can't wait to buy it down here, right? It's here. Just create a plan and stick to it. And it's okay to be wrong. Just be wrong. Don't fight it. When you're wrong, you're wrong. And when you're right, don't just sell it as soon as like you see green. Where were your planned sells? Where were your planned exits, right? A plan isn't just where you buy something and where you stop. It's also where you're planning on selling or realizing profits. A lot of times people get greedy when they see it start working. It goes way past their target, and then it starts to come back, and then they're like, oh, but it was just way up there. I'm going to wait till it goes back up there to sell. And, what do? And they watch it come all the way back on them. Your plan needs to include all the steps, guys. And you got to stick to it. One second. Ernie says, thoughts on SPWR short off 30. So the solar sector has been on a tear, right? Yeah, 30s, maybe even 32 on something like SPWR. But for me, the other thing when it comes to like a sector that's on a tear like this, right? And we've talked about this very recently in the True Trader community, and that is there's a whole basket of names that trade in here, right? So Run, right? Somebody wanted to fade Run, thinking it was going to make a lower high here, but it's already had a valid long setup. This pullback into the 20, the push up, the higher low, and then it triggers, right? So that can give it that pop. But the question really becomes, like, why are we watching Run? Why are we watching SPWR? Why are we not watching things like FSLR where you're getting extended way, way away from the 20-day? We're pushing way, way into historically significant levels. And the range is significant. It's a $6 range on this thing every single day, right? So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about during the beginning opening of the prep. Was your job as a trader needs to be focusing on the right names, right? So you want to fade something in the solar sector, go find the thing that's the most extended, right? The thing that's offering the most meat on the bone. You want to find stocks that are basing when the market just made a big push. Why? They're showing relative weakness, right? Like Lance Breitstein, the one Lance, maybe the one Lance B on Twitter or whatever, probably one of the best traders of our generation, has been putting out a lot of really great YouTube content, and he's got a really cool analogy, and that is like your job is to walk into the casino and spot the slot machine that it's broke and is just spitting out money, right? That's your job as a trader. But so many people would rather sit at the blackjack table just hitting while there's a slot machine 3 seats over that's just spitting money out, right? It's a great analogy, and that's really what your job is as a trader, is to identify the stocks that are going to be just spitting out the money because there's an opportunity there and there's an edge. I hope that makes sense. And if you guys check out his material, honestly, if you haven't already seen his stuff, you really got to. Let's see if there's some more questions real fast. Whitney Love, do you have a video on your chart setup? You mean like how I set up my actual charts on TradingView? Not sure if that's what you mean or not by that question. Cook says, thoughts on short play of speed up in the breakdown? level on AMD. Okay. Yeah, so AMD for me, the 20-day and that monthly pivot is where I would be looking. Okay, not just because the 20-day there, not just because the monthly, but also and if you look, this should look very similar to the NQ chart, right? Not the NQ chart. So you have resistance, get above it, support, got below it, retested the underside, rolled over, and hasn't retested since. Now you got the declining 20-day there, the monthly pivot. It's also got your weekly 20 there. So any big spike up into this 90 area on AMD would be a fade for me. And remember, like I said, this looks just like the QQQ chart, right? Right here, the pullback, this is where it held, broke down, hasn't retested from the underside since. What's NVIDIA look like? Probably similar. Yeah, NVIDIA, that would be the same way I play NVIDIA too. Any kind of move back. Now granted, listen, NVIDIA just triggered a long setup off a significant level. Remember, like this pink line didn't just come out of nowhere, right? It was support back here. So we finally get this huge sell-off, right? And what do we get? There's your higher low, trigger. There's your trigger, right? So for me, I think the play on NVIDIA is actually a long on pullbacks into support, maybe even like 138, to try to capture this move. Like everybody's looking to fade this thing, right, on a big pop back into resistance, but it's just now starting to have the reversal, right? So let's say the market, instead of pushing further into resistance, the market does a nice controlled pullback and starts holding levels. Well, that might really turn into a good scenario to be getting long something like NVIDIA, that just showed a reversal. Okay, remember that. Like Dell, I think was on our list last week. I think it didn't quite get down to 36, but flushes into support. Right, these things have had really big sell-offs and are just now starting to reverse. Those are the ones that might have a lot of meat on the bone to the upside still. And we could sit here and be like patiently waiting for this 160 level on NVIDIA to fade. Meanwhile, we're just, if it pulls back to 138 and it goes from 138 to 160, we just watched it make that whole move thinking like that it was possible it could do that, yet we didn't want to get long, right? So keep that in mind, guys, right? Like AMD, I don't quite see the long there like I see it on NVIDIA. I think this is getting much more extended to the upside. Granted, it could pull back and offer a really decent long. But again, is that going to be a broken slot machine? I don't think so. I think a big spike into 90, 91 from here on AMD, I think that is a broken slot machine. KH is asking about the chip China ban. Do you think they lose market cap? Listen, that's the kind of question, right, where I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but like the whole topic was just being like, look, the best thing you can learn to say as a trader, the best 4 words you can have in your vocabulary is I do not know. And anybody that so KH is asking about the China ban on the chips, on selling them, or whatever the hell it was, right, with the chips and the Chip Act and trying to produce them in the U.S. and whatever's going on with that sector, right? You can have 20 different analysts with 20 different opinions, and all 20 of them can be freaking wrong. The only thing that matters is price. It's the only thing that matters, and the trend. Price and the trend. Are we making higher highs and higher lows? Are we getting extended? Are we making lower highs and lower lows? Are we getting extended, or have we found balance, or are we at a level of imbalance? Those are the things that matter, and those are the only things that anybody can discuss with you where they can say it with 100% objectivity and zero opinion, right? There's no opinion about whether something is in an uptrend or a downtrend. Whether or not I think anything about market cap or market share or anything in the chip sector is all just opinion. So don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody. Screw it. Just pay attention to the price. Greg Jones, on bar chart, could you please show how you look at the individual stock under a certain sector? Sure. Here in bar chart, let's just say, now are you asking, so you can search a symbol right here, or you can just search, you can go into a sector, right? So like, let's say I like financial, like we talked about, the financial sector. I like that ETF. I think it's trading really nice. You just click on the sector and you come here and it tells you all the components, okay? And I like to sort by volume so that I look at the ones that have the most liquidity, right? And then you can go through charts. Now, a lot of times, right, like something might be liquid, but then you pull up the chart and it doesn't have range. So, I personally prefer to have both. I need something with range and liquidity. So hopefully that answers that section or that question, Greg. If not, I'll try to answer it better if you want to add to the question. KH, bro, he says you cannot call it a complete market review without looking at BABA and Tesla. Bro, I can 100% call it that because I don't need to have, if they weren't, listen, the way the market is set up right now is set up perfectly for some of these names that have not let shorts out to squeeze out. If BABA and Tesla didn't make the screen, then my screener is by definition doing its job. And what do I mean by that? It's literally keeping stuff away from my view that I don't need to be paying attention to. And that's half the battle, right? If you can figure out how to create screeners that, like, let's say you are a short cap seller or a small cap short seller, and you find a certain setup that you like, right? One of the first things you should do, and I recommend this, is find out what it is that creates the perfect candidate for your setup, right? And create filters and scans that only bring the top candidates to your face instead of you going out and looking for them. Because what happens is if you don't have a screener or a scanner that will bring them to your attention when they meet all of your criteria, and you just go out and look for things, what are you going to do? You're going to go and look and see what names are gapping up, right? Because that's what every short seller looks for, is something gapping up large. Well, guess what? By definition, you're going to have a bunch of BS in your face because maybe they're gapping up 40, 45, 50%, but there's a reason that they shouldn't have met your criteria that had nothing to do with the gap percentage, right? It could have had to do with range or volume or market cap or share structure or whatever. But like, because you went out looking for it, trust me, as humans, we have this uncanny ability to, if you want to see something, you'll find it, right? We will make up reasons why we should be in a trade or stay in a trade, or, we'll always go find trouble to get into. And so like, that's exactly what I'm talking about on, like, that's why BABA and Tesla aren't on my scan this week, because they don't deserve to be this week. Now, granted, there's people that make a living trading only Tesla, right? They might just trade Tesla. They might just trade Apple. They might just trade S&P futures contracts, whatever. If that's what you do, then that's what you do. But that's not what I do. And I know what I do, and I stay in my lane. So, like, that's a huge thing everybody should really figure out for themselves, is, like, define what you do. Treat this as a business, right? And I've talked about this before. The guy that owns an Applebee's franchise doesn't sit in his Applebee's looking out into the parking lot at the guy that owns Big Lots and see that the guy at Big Lots has a bunch of business at the moment, and maybe his Applebee's, it's like the lull and they don't have a lot of customers in there eating, and he's just scratching his head going, maybe we should start selling products for the home like Big Lots does. No. He knows that he's a restaurant owner, so he stays in his freaking lane because he's defined what his business is, right? And that's what you have to do. You need to define what your business is and then stay in your lane, okay? All right, I'm going to end it at that because, like I said, guys, I've got to go watch the Chiefs, and I see Sunil reminding me about it, right? All right, I love you guys. I hope everybody stays safe and trades well this week. Please check out TrueTrader if you haven't. If you guys don't understand how to read a trend, it's the most important concept in trading, and if you don't understand it, get your ass over to TrueTrader. I'll teach you. Use the coupon code, I believe YouTube in all caps, get a discount. There is a 5-day trial. It's, I think, $30, and if you can't spend $30 to come invest in yourself, you probably shouldn't be trading anyway. Love you guys. See you guys later. Peace.